Good morning. This is Kathy for Getting Chatty with Kathy, and I want to thank you guys for joining the show today. I have a very interesting person on the show. I'm really excited to dive into what she does. Today we're going to talk with Tara Semple. Hi, Tara.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I am fantastic. Happy to be here.
Thank you so much. So, Tara, you have a business here in Regina that's at the Knox Metropolitan Church, I believe,
Yes, I do.
and it's the Shunyata Sound Studio.
Excellent.
Yes. So that's an interesting business name. Could you tell me where it came from?
So, shunyata is the complete fullness or the complete emptiness of the silence following the sound. So, it's a bit of can be looked at either way. Silence is, an underrated aspect of sound, but it's really important. When we have silence, then we're able to integrate what we experienced in the sound. So I'm very conscious of making sure I have space in my offerings for silence.
Wow. So let's dive into that a little bit. So, sound baths. They
Yes.
are getting a lot of news these days. It's kind of a hip thing. So, how did you find yourself in the sound bath world? How did you get there?
So I'm a performer. I'm a professional musician. I play in the Regina Symphony
I
Orchestra.
saw that.
Yeah, so I've spent my whole life as a musician who performs on a stage. Then, partway through my life, I got into something called acupressure. And so I studied acupressure in Vancouver with my teacher, and he also had crystal bowls and gongs and Tibetan bowls. And I found myself, I love doing the acupressure, but then I would spend most of my time afterwards in the sound field playing with the
Interesting.
bowls and things like that. And after I graduated from that program, I realized that my real calling was still in music, but just using music in a different way. So then I just started on that path. And for me, I'm a lifelong learner. So I just kept finding teachers. I just recently graduated from a program in Sausalito, California, which is a sound healing program that just keeps expanding the way I look at sound and how I can use sound as a vehicle to support people on inner journeys, to listen to their own voices, and to support people. Most of us in this day and age live really rapid lives, and taking the time to quiet down and be in that more relaxed, restful state is really important. But because our lives are so active, lots of times when we try to meditate, especially for me, I got a little bit of monkey mind going on.
Yes, it's hard to
So
center.
what I found is if I would go to a sound bath, my mind would be held in the sound. Because when I'm hearing a tone, that's not like in a concert where it's really interesting, but I'm being held by the frequency of this sound, then it stops my brain from thinking about other things and having my usual repetitive thoughts and things like that. And instead I'm held in this sound, and then I can go deeper into myself and then listen to what my inner voice has to say.
Wow. So it really helps you to really meditate into it.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's definitely something I try. I went to one. It was interesting. It was, I forget. It was in the industrial area, and
Yes.
they had for first timers that had never really tried it before, and it was just kind of interesting to be in a room and these pitches from the bowl. So for those of you that haven't been to a sound bath, why don't we kind of break that down because it is
Okay.
different.
Every sound bath is different. So every practitioner brings their gifts, they bring their path, and there is no right or wrong way to
Okay.
give sound. And what you'll find is you will find that you'll be attracted to where it resonates for you because it is about resonance. So for me, my background is in music. So that is part of being in the sound field. And
Yeah.
so and for me being an instrumentalist, I love the instruments. So I do some vocalization, I do many different instruments, and I have a lot of instruments that people would be unfamiliar with, which is also helpful in a sound bath. Like I don't play, like sometimes I play my modern flute, but usually I'll play, I have a Nepalese flute that has a more of a wooden tone, so it's a bit more earthy.
Beautiful.
So I like to use that. I use crystal bowls, I use the metal bowls. I have a sansula, which is a piece that's tuned to a very specific, like a minor scale, and so and it's on a soundboard.
Neat.
So I have a monolina, which is a large string instrument that's for chanting, as well as a
So
shruti
how did you
box.
find these instruments?
They find me.
Oh.
They find me and then they follow me home.
Somebody's,
It keeps
like, passes
expanding.
Oh, I love this.
Yeah, as I say, I really I love working with instruments. So that's my personal aspect in a sound bath. I now have 7 or 8 gongs that have followed me home, but I also have developed partnerships. I have a partnership at Knox Met with the Regina Bell Ringers. So they have purchased a number of these gongs, and I use the gongs in sound baths, and then I will, do things for them in their circle.
So are you saying that your sound baths are like in the actual like pewed area?
So what I have is I'm renting the old chapel in the front of Knox. So it's not as big as the sanctuary area.
Okay.
So I can fit about 18 people in there. And so and it's a really interesting room for sound because all the walls are curved.
Oh, the
So it really brings the sounds together, and it's quite a magical experience in that space. Then what we also do is we follow the sun through the solstices and the equinoxes. So now we've gathered a beautiful community of people who follow the sun with us. Dr. Julie Zepp comes out and she speaks about the inner journey, so that if people show up and they're like, well, I don't know what to think or what I should,
Right.
My brain is busy. And so she kind of grounds everybody, and, we'll talk about that season and what it represents, and different things that people might be able to sit with during the sound bath. So that they can have, a really interesting journey, or at least a way of knowing where to go on the journey if you
Right.
don't know where to go. And in that series, because I'm a performer, we also do some concert. So I'll either bring in someone or I'll play flute, or so I like to tie that in because music in the concert field is relaxing. And it's beautiful, and people have just come from busy days, so it's a really nice transition from being in the outer
Busy,
world
busy, busy,
to
busy.
yeah. So then we have a little bit of concert, and we bring people down, and then Julie will talk for about 7 to 10 minutes, and then we move into the sound bath proper.
Beautiful experience. So how can somebody sign up to do this?
If you go onto my website, so www.shunyatasoundstudio.com, and if you go on there, I have my listings of offerings. So what I do is in my smaller studio, I will do sort of a group of offerings. So I did Sounds of Focus last semester, and we did things like gongs only, bowls only, rhythms only. So people could kind of dive deeper in those areas, because when I do the larger sound bath, I'll do a variety of instruments. Because we have a lot of new people coming in, and sometimes one of the sounds may not sit as well. And like, I shouldn't say that all sounds in a sound bath are relaxing.
Right.
Some sounds in a sound bath are more challenging, and they're to shake things up. So I will use shakers and stronger sounds because we have stuck ideas. We have stuck energy in our body. And how do you move things like that if everything is just lovely? So like life, there are some things that are going to move the energy through, and some things that are going to take us into that slower brain wave, so that we can get into that in-between world between sleep and wakefulness.
I want to go deep on that. So, like, I'm a bit of a, like, love reading about, like, mushrooms and all of that sort of stuff. I haven't done mushrooms in a million years. Like, let's be But I feel like sometimes people will try to do that to get to a lower plane to resonate with that like dimensional kind of vibe. I wonder if people do that for your sound.
So you will find, again, you know how I said, you will find the people that you resonate with.
Yeah.
There are people who do that.
I bet. Like,
Yeah.
I think that would be incredible.
It may be. That is not what I do.
Okay.
So if that's who you're looking for, there are people who do that, and that's part of their
Interesting.
experience. For me, I want that experience without anything.
Yes.
I want the experience. I want to do that work and get in there and have that. And that's just me. That's who
think
I
that's
am.
incredible that,
So-
that people are interested, and we're all now listening more
Yeah.
to our inner self and are welcoming to go to a bath and feel comfortable to like share that with other people. I think it's incredible.
Yeah, it just, like, it really is something that's needed in this time, because sound offerings in this way, there are people who have been doing this for 40, 50 years, but they were alone when they were doing this, and people thought they were a bit whack, right? So now, because there's the scientific evidence, now we can measure people's brain waves, and you can see what happens in a sound bath, and you can see the transition when they go into that other place, and it's scientific. So people, it's less woo-woo and more scientific, and that's why I do go and study and take these courses, so I can be very mindful in my practice. Because when I perform on a stage as a classical musician, I'm performing written music from a page.
Somebody's kind of figured it out and you do it again and
Yeah,
again.
so my job as an orchestral musician is to be as creative as I can within the context of what someone has written. When I'm in the sound field, I'm feeling my way through it. It is always different because of the people who come. So I'm just trying to really be sensitive to the energies who have come into the room, and I'm listening. So when you play something like the gongs often surprise me. And I've been playing the gongs for years. And there's sounds that I've never heard before. And I
Huge
think,
sounds.
how is that possible? But it depends who's in the room. It depends which things I play beforehand, because they affect each other. And I didn't realize how much they affect each other till recently. I was working on a film project, and we were using sound instruments. And, we were thinking our way through it and thought, well, okay, we'd have more manipulability if we record these bowls separately. And then we listened to them, and it was just wrong.
Didn't sound right.
No,
They didn't
because
play
they
off
weren't
each other's
they weren't
vibes.
talking to each other. So they actually resonate so much with each other. So we had to go back in and then make sure we record the sound of it as it affects each other.
Together.
And it's the same thing when people are in the room. So we're made of water. We're resonant beings. So sometimes people will fall asleep. Well, sometimes. Quite often people will fall asleep. And then they worry, I didn't, get
Enjoy it
what I
all.
should have from the sound bath. But it's about trusting your body. And you know what? Your body probably really, really needed that sleep. So how wonderful that you had this opportunity and you took this time for yourself to go deep into your body, and your body is still resonating with all of the frequencies that are being played in the room, whether you are conscious for it or whether you're unconscious for it, because that we're resonant beings.
And it sounds like it's a perfect tool for a tool belt for somebody who's feeling like too much energy, and you can like take it down like a meditation. But
Yes. So I have lots of smaller groups of people come in. So coming up, I have a group of yoga people who have, they all do yoga
Those
together.
yogis.
They're coming in because they already are consciously working on some of these things. So it gives them a different way of being in this.
hold positions while you play your instruments. Oh, what
Yeah,
nice.
people can do all sorts of. I've had dancers come in who were moving as they received the sound because it just felt right for them to move in the sound field
Yes.
as they were lying down. I've had there's a woman in town who runs a group for people who struggle with anxiety, and she brought them in.
Yeah.
So, it's a wonderful way. It's also a really beautiful way of celebrating a rite of passage. So we have celebrated people's birthdays. We have come and gathered, through a divorce.
What a cool
Right?
way
Like,
to,
we
reset the
don't
day, or
we don't always have these rites of passages, and the ones that we do seem to always involve alcohol and food. So how beautiful to try something different and gather your friends and say, hey, for your birthday, what if we don't do cake?
Yeah.
What if we gather together and we gather in sound? And recently had a group come in, and they were supporting someone who was having her baby. So they came in and had a supportive sound
I
field.
love that. That's so wonderful.
It's a beautiful way of gathering community. And that's what I find too about this larger Sun series that we've been doing is we're hungry. We are very hungry for ritual. We are hungry for gathering and community, and having a wonderful container that, as we follow the seasons, that, every so many months, the next offering will gather this group of people together. And then even if I haven't taken the time that I thought I would for myself, it's that gift to self. So people will come out and say, oh, it feels so good to be back here. And they take that time to have that inner journey.
Well, and they're like, can look forward to it, can like something to look forward to too, is really important. I
And
think.
connecting, right? Because then now I see people who now will be chatting with other people who they didn't know before, but they're regulars who come out together. And, similar people who are on the similar path, they have a lot in common.
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful way to meet your people, because it's other people who are feeling those same things, thinking, is this really how my life should be unrolling? I'm anxious. I'm like just running all the time, and it just feels like I never have time to really listen.
Be present.
Yeah, and be present, right? So it's nice to have these opportunities. And then now that people are using this as a rite of passage too. So when you have something in your life that you're drawn to gather people in your community, what a beautiful thing to do. To say, hey, let's go be in sound together. And then, then let's go and spend time together. And like, what came up for you? Like, what does your inner voice actually want to tell you?
And then you can talk about it with the, oh, I think that's just such a cool thing that you're offering here in Regina.
Yeah, it's wonderful. And there's always, like, as I say, I'm an endless learner.
Yes.
And like I've already signed up. There's a gong camp in the States for 10 days. Well, personally, I can't think of anything more exciting than going to gong camp for 10 days. And it's just a really beautiful opportunity for me to dive deeper, for me to experience more time in sound when someone else, so that I'm receiving on that end as well. So I understand more of things that I can create and offer for people. And yeah, there just seems to be new ways to approach it all the time. And we also have brought this into the school system.
Tell me, this is cool.
This is very cool. So I work with a teacher, Rosa Haynes, and she is one of those teachers who's just an absolute creative, think outside the box, and she is passionate about educating those kids, and she's always bringing in new things. So we were talking and said, the sound baths are so amazing for adults. The issue that keeps coming up in the school system is kids are dealing with depression and anxiety at younger and younger ages. What can we actually do to allow children to be more present and teach them some resiliency? That, what if I hear a sound that I'm uncomfortable with? Maybe in a classroom. Can I regulate in my own system so that my system doesn't get revved up? Can I learn regulation? So that's one of the things we're working on. So what we did is we came up with a program. And in this program, we went through a whole school, and we did, 500-ish kids who got to work in this program. And they each got to come in 4 times.
Wow.
So we had a different focus for each thing. And we didn't just, in our hearts, the area that's really important is teaching children with a self-regulation and allowing them to have that quiet time. But it was such an easy tie-in. So all these instruments are from all over the world. So social studies, super easy. Science, right? It's vibration. What is vibration, right? What does a sound wave look like? There's a thing called a Chladni plate. So you put a plate and you put salt on top, and then you vibrate it with a bow, like a violin bow, and then it jumps into these patterns, right? So pretty cool science, right? Like, I mean, and then music, because we're using scales. We're using a modern Western scale. We're using pentatonic 5-note scales. And so we're able to work with the kids in all these different ways. And, you know, what an idea to be able to bring sound into the classroom and work with kids. Like, wouldn't that be a wonderful thing if that could be part of everyone's education? So, you know, we are applying for other things to try to get in more and more. I'd love to get into the high school.
Well, I find when we were growing up, like, none of these conversations, no tools were really given to us to deal with, you know, stressful things, or we never learned how to meditate, or, you know, just take a minute to, like, think. And I think that, like, something like these are perfect tools for kids.
Yeah. And it's interesting. Like, so I was a little bit afraid. 30 kids in a classroom. I'm bringing in, you know, gongs and bowls and asking them to be quiet. Am I on the floor?
And how did it go?
Could be, you know what? Surprisingly wonderful.
Even the kids that run around with their heads cut off?
So, you know, I can't say that we didn't have any of that. There was bits and pieces of that came in, but overall, the vast majority was amazing. And getting the feedback from the kids about their experiences, about things that came up, right? It actually taught me some of the things that adults don't say, because kids just say
no
it.
filter.
Yeah, so they actually were, hey, this is what I felt. And it was interesting how many children go into memories, you know, and they say, oh, I had this memory, you know, and so those kind of things. So we had the kids journal, because, you know, you can't have an entire class of 30 children talk about their experience, unfortunately, but being able to journal and being able to have a place to process some of this information, to say, wow, like, that's interesting. This is what comes up when things get really quiet.
You're really thinking and processing what's going on in your life.
Yeah. And so the fellow that I studied with down in the state, David Gibson, he has huge programs down in the States where they're going in more and more into different classrooms. So that is my dream for up here, is to bring it into the more classrooms.
Teachers out there, you know what? Like, maybe it's a good field trip even for a class for one day, you know, to show kids that this is something here. And
it was good for teachers. We also did the sound bath for teachers.
Well, they need it massively right now.
Well, and also, you know, like, because, you know, it's crystal bowls, gongs, so people can go kind of, oh, it's kind of woo-woo. Well,
it's the sound
it's
creates.
not. You know, yes, it can be, but this is not what we're working in. We're working in science. We are teaching all these great concepts. What a wonderful and I'm very hands-on, because I go into the band programs. And if I was to stand at the front and talk about a flute, these kids would go squirrely. Mm-hmm. So first thing we do, we take that head joint, we play within seconds, because they want to play, they want to touch it, they want to. So when we went into the classrooms, I made sure I had instruments that children could touch. And the way we ended it is they gave us a sound bath, because I wanted them to also understand what it's like to be the person. So how can you create sound that's gentle, right? Because, I mean, a child could take a bowl and whack it really hard, and it would not be a good experience in a sound bath. But it's teaching them to also listen. So one of the things that teachers will talk about in a classroom is children don't listen, and they're missing the instructions. So this also supports the education, because we're teaching them to listen deeply. And same with adults. Are we always listening? Are we hearing our own words?
Mm-hmm. We're thinking about the next thing to say.
For sure. I know I'm guilty of that as well.
I try not to.
Absolutely. It's a lifelong process. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's an opportunity for all of us to really deeply listen, and then discern what comes up. right? Because sometimes when something comes up, we may immediately think, oh, it's because of this, and do. But if we really sit with it and we're really curious about it, or really honest, we might learn a little something about what we already know, but we're not listening to from our own inner path.
You know, for a long time I worked as like a manager of an office, let's explain it that way, and I didn't like it. And you know, like I knew intuitively, like going into the office at 8, leaving at 5 drove me nuts. Like I'm not meant to just and I never listened to myself. And it got to the point where I was really unhealthy. And when I finally figured out, okay, I need to change, I started to do the yoga, the meditation, and all of these different tools that have made me feel like I'm tuned into myself.
Yes.
And I'm a much happier human being because of it, right?
Beautiful.
But it took a long time, and I think I really appreciate the tools that are now out there for people because, you know, we do live a lifestyle that is hard. Life isn't easy, I don't think. And I think that having people in the community that are aware of that and like let people have a space, it's big. And listening to that silence and understanding there's so many layers of silence here. Oh, this province has a lot going on.
It really does. It's a wonderful place to live. We have lots of opportunities here.
Yeah. Well, I can't thank you enough for
Thank
coming
you
on
for
the show,
having me.
sharing about what you're doing. I think that any of you guys out there that want to like figure out a new like way of, you know, bringing joy into their life, maybe you guys might want to try out the Shunyata to Sound bath. Did I do that right?
Yep. Shunyata Sound Studio.
Thank you. All of you out there, reach out if you need any more information. I'll link it in my YouTube page. Okay. Thank you, everybody, and take care out there.